Revelation chapter 8. John starts off. He says, and when he had opened, he, being the Lamb, Jesus, had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. What has happened immediately prior to the opening of this seventh seal? I know it's been a couple of weeks since we had Sunday school. Look back in chapter 7. Verse 10 says, and cried, this is that multitude that could not be numbered, cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God, which sit upon the throne, and unto the Lamb, and all the angels stood round about the throne. And it says they fell on their faces and worshiped God. So immediately prior to the opening of this seventh seal, you've got a let's get more specific. We. Because verse 9 is us. Okay? We. Now remember, we're looking into the future. This hasn't happened yet, but it will happen. We're in heaven praising God, and all the angels, how many would that be? We don't know. But John did say, I think it was in 2 or 3 chapters earlier, 100 million plus thousands and thousands and thousands more. So immediately prior to verse 1 of chapter 8, when it says there was silence in heaven, there is a worship service unlike any worship service that's ever been. Do you think it was a quiet worship service? They're singing. They're praising God. There was some noise going on. And then there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. Why? 2 weeks I've wondered about this. Why was there silence in heaven? I don't know. Don't you hate when somebody asks a question and they don't have an answer? The only thing that I can come up with is that the seventh seal is about to be opened, and you've got these millions and millions and millions and millions and millions praising God. And the only thing I can think of is God just holds up his hand. And there's silence. I think, I might be wrong, we'll find out one day, you could have heard a pin drop silence. John says in verse 2, and I saw the 7 angels which stood before God, and to them were given 7 trumpets. I think these are 7 special angels. These are angels were created, I think, I could be wrong, just for this purpose, just for these 7 trumpets. And verse 3 says, and another angel, not one of the 7. Now remember, this is happening, and everyone in heaven has their eyes focused on God, focused on the throne, and these 7 angels, we can just assume they walk in holding their 7 trumpets, and this other angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne, and the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. Turn back to chapter 5, verse 8. And when he, this is Jesus the Lamb, had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. All prayers, I think, from Adam. All prayers ascended up to God. Verse 5, and the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. Thunder and lightning, what does it signify? An approaching storm. The earth is about to face a storm that the earth has never faced before. The earth is about to endure a storm from which the earth will not recover. We've gone through this once, we understand. This is a storm that doesn't just come and go. This is a storm that the earth will not recover from. Verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. I just visualize because I have to do that to understand things. They stood there in a row, what they were created for. It's now time. A lot of anticipation. Maybe a lot of nerves on the angels' part if angels have nerves. It's about time to blow the trumpet. What does it take to blow a trumpet? A lot of air. Can you not just picture them straightening up, taking a deep breath? Let's look over, and we read this the first time. Turn back over to Zephaniah, chapter 1. Zephaniah. I'll give you a few minutes to find Zephaniah. Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai. If you find any of that, you know you're close. Zephaniah, chapter 1. We're going to read verses 14 through 18. I'm going to read verse 6 of chapter 8 one more time. And the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Verse 14 of Zephaniah chapter 1. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near, and hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty men shall cry there bitterly. There is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as the dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath. But the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. What was recorded in Zephaniah is about to happen, or the beginning of it is about to happen in Revelation chapter 8, verse 7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth, and the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. I don't know what fell. It came from heaven, from the sky. It says it fell. It says hail and fire mingled with blood. What it was, I don't know. We can imagine, we can speculate, but God's greater than our imagination. God's greater than our speculation. So God's not limited by what has happened in the past. Possibly it's meteorites, I don't know. But the result was the third part of trees was burnt up and all green grass was burnt up. What happened with the sixth seal? Stop a minute. When was the first seal opened? Back up again. I'm going to have y'all so confused with all my questions. How long does it take from the first? Over what period of time do the 7 seals occur?
3.5 years.
7 years. When does the first seal take place?
About 18 months.
But when? When does it happen? My belief is it happens. What's the first seal? The Antichrist. My belief is it happens immediately after the rapture. My belief is that the Antichrist appears on the scene immediately after the rapture. My belief is the rapture happens right before the tribulation. Not everyone agrees with that. That's my belief. I also think, so the first seal happens, I'm going with, at the beginning of the tribulation. The second, third, and fourth seal, I think, happens toward the end of the first 3.5 years, or maybe right at the beginning of the second 3.5 years. What's the first seal? The Antichrist. What's the second, third, fourth seal? You remember what those are? That's war, peace is taken away, war, famine, death. I think that the Antichrist, for that first 3 years, somewhere around there, he really deceives people. People think, hey, it's great. And then all of a sudden, that's why I'm going with toward the end of the first 3.5 years, the beginning of the second 3.5 years. My point, all my rambling here. The sixth seal, when does it happen? Sometime in the last 3.5 years. Even if it happens at the beginning of the last 3.5 years, which I kind of think it's a little into the last 3.5 years. The seventh seal, when does it happen? I think at the end, right toward the end of the second 3.5 years. I did all that rambling to say this. If the sixth seal happens somewhere in the middle, the end of the second 3.5 years, and if the seventh seal takes place at the end, toward the end of the second 3.5 years, how much time is there between the sixth seal and the seventh seal?
3 to 3.5 years.
Maybe a few months. If the sixth seal happens middle-ish, end of the second 3.5 years, and the seventh seal happens at the endish of the second 3.5 years. What takes place with the sixth seal? I've done a ton of rambling. I'm sorry.
You really have.
Okay, so the sixth seal, there is an earthquake, unlike any earthquake that's ever happened. The atmosphere is full of dust, pollution, ash, just everything. The first trumpet, fire, third of the trees burn up, all green grass burn up. We breathe in oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. What do trees in green do? Right the opposite. Trees take in carbon dioxide and make oxygen. All that ton of rambling that I did, what do you think the air quality on earth is going to be like after this first trumpet sounds?
Very cold. Very, very cold.
Horrible. Just oxygen is going to be scarce. Since I'm rambling, what do we eat? Meat and vegetables. If all green grass is burnt up, what do cows eat? Grass. Chickens, what do they eat? Grain. Claudine feeds them corn every day. What's corn? Like grass. It's burnt up. Birds. Pigs. There's not going to be any food for the animals. What's going to happen to the animals? They're going to die. Where are we going to get our food?
No.
Just think of the domino effect this has. Verse 8, I'll quit rambling. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. So we've already determined that meat on land, there's not going to be any. So, okay, we'll eat fish. What's happened to a third of all sea life? It's gone. A third of all ships that get the sea life to the market, they're gone. Verse 10, and the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of the waters, and the name of the star is called Wormwood, and the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. What falls from heaven? Sounds like a comet, but like I keep saying, not going to limit God to it having to be a comet. But what happens? What's the end result? All fresh water. A third of all fresh water is poisoned. Now, a third of all fresh water. That doesn't just mean, I don't think, waters that's just on top, like a stream or a river, springs that come up from underneath. There is no food. We've determined that. Now, water is so scarce, says the last part of verse 11, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. People will be so hungry, they will be so thirsty that they will drink poison water. What kind of death do you think that's going to be? Just horrible. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Sun, the moon, controls our weather. So the weather is just going to go haywire. It's going to be dark at least it sounds like at least a third more. What does darkness do? When you have no food, you have no water, and then it's just this darkness that you can't see. Makes you go crazy. Yes. Yeah. Think of what it's going to be like on the earth when this seventh seal is opened. And in verse 13, and I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice. Y'all know my belief on this. This angel is going to be flying treetop high. And this angel will be heard by everyone. I believe. Everyone will hear what this angel says. And what does this angel say? Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. It's horrible after these first 4 trumpets. But the horror of the first 4 trumpets won't compare to the horror of the last 3 trumpets. And then there's vials to open on top of these trumpets. Don't you love ending a lesson on a positive note like that? Well, that's all.